This is Wickett on Wisconsin. My name's Mike Wickett. After 10 years in Milwaukee talking sports, I took a bit of a break, but now I'm back and here to talk about the Packers, the Bucks, the Brewers, and more with you. And now inside the Koss Headphone Studios, this is Wickett on Wisconsin. My name's Mike Wickett. After 10 years in Milwaukee talking sports, I took a bit of a break, but now I'm back and here to talk about the Packers, the Bucks, the Brewers, and more with you. And now inside the Koss Headphone Studios, this is Wickett on Wisconsin with me, Mike Wickett. Welcome in another episode of Wickett on Wisconsin. Thank you so much for joining me again this week. We'll have some more Netflix quarantine recommendations, although you may not be stuck at home, potentially where you are listening to this. If in Wisconsin, maybe you've gone back to work, maybe life is reopened, but regardless, I watch a lot of stuff that I like to recommend and stuff I won't recommend to you a little bit later on. Joining me this week, it is her first time on the podcast. You see her on WISN Channel 12. She is a longtime sports reporter in Milwaukee. Stephanie Sutton is with me, and if you're watching on the video, you also know that her daughter Holly is with us as well. Hello to the Suttons.
Hi.
First and foremost, Stephanie, are you guys safe? I mean, I know you don't have one of those jobs that you can completely do from home. You have to go out and cover things, and we'll get to what you're actually covering these days. But are you guys staying safe? Are you staying entertained during the quarantine?
We're staying safe. Watching a lot of shows. Watching a lot of The Office and Netflix, and The Last Dance when I can. And what else are we watching? We're watching a lot of shows.
Was up at Dwight's wedding.
Right.
I cry. All the emotions, all the feels. Like, I'm not ashamed to admit that. I'm a guy who can cry during a sitcom finale. I'm fine with that.
No, and it's worthy of it. It really is. And anytime I see the series or the episode where Jim and Pam get married, come on. You can't help but cry.
Yeah.
When they sneak away to actually have the wedding on the boat as opposed to the church because they knew their coworkers would be crazy and the whole wedding aisle dance thing. So
when he clips the tie. I mean, how do you not?
When it's the time, it's really good, really well done.
So burning through Netflix like everybody else. As a
Big fan of Dead to Me real quick. Big fan. We just wrapped that up.
We just started episode 1 of season 2. So
Christina Applegate, my new BFF, she drinks, she swears. There's a whole murder thing though that I don't relate to, but other than that, I really, really like her.
What are you doing? How does a sports reporter in the time of no sports and someone who anchors sports for Channel 12 in Milwaukee, what are you doing? What would you say you do here these days?
I will say this is interesting. Of all the stations in the market, now 58, maybe 2 has the sportscast. I think, 6 and 4, they do have sports segments in the sense that if they do stories and stuff like that, but we have not stopped our sports casts. Now, time does get taken away from us on certain days, but we've been like, I'm anchoring today. I'm filling in for Dan Needles tonight at, on 6 and 10 on Channel 12. And, I'm going in hoping that, maybe there's some new headlines or updates with Major League Baseball or the NFL or the NBA. If not, then me and my coworkers are trying to turn sports stories the best we can. Like last week, I interviewed Anders Bjork. I don't know if you know who he is. He's from Mequon. and he plays for the Boston Bruins. So he was home. Now, I did not get to go to his house or interview him that way. A lot of Zoom interviews I'm doing.
Yeah.
And honestly, I kind of like the convenience of the Zoom interview as opposed to having to go across town or go to Madison to get some of these athletes, some of these players. But he was an interesting thing because for a hockey player, we've done baseball stories on Gavin Lux and stuff, and they've allowed them to go to hitters but for a hockey player, there are no ice rinks open. I mean, maybe slowly but surely now, but for the 2 months, you couldn't skate. He got rollerblades and skated in his driveway, thankfully with his younger brother who also plays hockey.
You know, had the Zoom thing been around during Favre's retirements, this would have been a lot easier than having to drive to Green Bay every year and camp out for a week. Like one of the first things I did when I moved to Milwaukee, I don't know what number retirement it was. It was before he went to the Jets. I remember I lived in Green Bay in a Motel 6 for a week. This just would have been easier.
Right. Yeah. You weren't even around in 2008.
Holly.
You weren't even on tour. Now, she came after the whole Dancing with the Stars thing, and hence sort of why her name is Holly after Hollywood, just saying.
Okay.
Yes, that inspired us to have one more, right, Holly? But yeah, you're right. The convenience of the Zoom interviews, and honestly, I think this will change the way we cover and report on events and sports and entertainment and politics moving forward. Whether it's an interview with the governor, which I know one of my coworkers did the other day. Again, it was via Zoom. It wasn't in person. For the convenience of not just us, for the person themselves, it does make it easier. With that being said, there is something to be said about a face-to-face interview. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
The interactions.
You can't have a Zoom interview of a full locker room of Packers players. You still have to be there in there.
Well, Mike, I'm glad you brought that up. I'm so curious. What does this all mean? Let's just say baseball does come back 4th of July weekend. Who can cover it? Where are we allowed? Now I'm here. We're not allowed in the clubhouses. And so are they going to just take, and as you know, it's tough enough after some of these games to get some of these players.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to wait for the PR person to escort maybe one at a time to the media room. And then are we in the media room spaced out 6 feet apart if that's the case?
And if it's a matchup with the Cubs, let's say, you have all the Chicago media that's there, and then you have all the Milwaukee media that's there. And I've been in that room dozens and dozens of times. You've been in that media room dozens and dozens of times. There's not enough room to socially distance people 3, 5, 6 feet apart to then hear Ryan Braun or to hear Lorenzo Cain or to hear Craig Counsell.
Well, especially what you just meant, like Cubs Wrigley Field. That is so much more contained.
Yeah.
That visiting clubhouse, and actually I haven't been there in a little bit, but I'm sure it's not much better than the last time I was there. But yeah, I don't know how they're gonna do this. Now I think it's interesting because of the Korean Baseball League, the fact that all those leagues are already in play. I feel like there's gonna be a season. It's just you're not gonna have the fans. Okay, hold on.
No, I see stuff going on behind you. Your daughter. Is that a dog? Is that a cat?
This is Jack. Who's like,
if you're listening on the podcast, you are definitely going to want to check out the video of this as well once it gets uploaded to Facebook and YouTube.
Gave him a treat.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. Well, that's cool.
All right. Thank you, Holly. Can you, Forky and the dog, go to your room for just like 5 minutes? You should go to your room. Hey, remember that video game you've been wanting to play for 2 hours?
Go pick up a tablet. Parents never say that.
That was the time. Do it.
It'll be interesting, too, because what if they just eliminate the media room? Think about, here's just top of my head as we're talking about this. There is no media room. You go wherever you go to log in. Maybe it's the press box or wherever you could safely socially distance yourself after a Brewers game. And Craig Counsell does a meeting from his desk, where normally it would be the 7 or 8 people, McCalvy and Hardercourt and everybody sitting around in his office. Maybe it's just a Zoom meeting beforehand. Maybe they sit Ryan Braun down in front of a camera after a game, and it's the same thing. Like, this might eliminate the media room.
It's right. I don't know what they're going to do.
Yeah.
I don't, again, or is it, we're flattening the curve and then do we slowly ease it? But even with that being said, you hear about NFL games. We're not even close to NFL season yet, and they're still talking about some of the early games maybe being without fans. and it's not just the fan thing, Mike, too. It's, let's just say you space fans out. It's getting into the stadiums. I mean, it's already lengthy. I know people complain about going into Lambeau Field as is. I'm like, my goodness, 6 feet apart and going, how is this all going to work? I don't know.
And I know that we're just kind of talking this out because nobody has any idea yet, but what are they going to sell, a third of the tickets at Lambeau? Are they going to sell, 12,000 seats at
Right.
Miller Park and 6,000 of those are up in the upper deck and 6,000 of those are down below? I don't know what you do.
I don't know what you do either. I don't know. I can't even imagine being an owner or player at this point with what you do now. With that being said, too, then you hear about the players' union arguing, billionaires are arguing with millionaires over
Awesome. That's always good. Yeah, it's great.
And people don't have, there's so many people without jobs right now that you're like, it's hard to understand that a little bit.
Do you think we get, because I went, my podcast last week after the UFC fight and the first time we had live sports, and I went on and I got a mixed feedback on this saying, look, one guy tested positive 2 days before the fight. And the difference between UFC and, say, the NFL, you can pull that guy and put another guy in there, and it's fine. If Aaron Rodgers tests positive Friday night before an NFL game on Sunday, are you pulling Aaron Rodgers? And who has he been around? Because those UFC guys went from the hotel room to the gym to the ring. Rodgers is in a locker room with 50 other guys. You have to quarantine the entire Packers team. Like, I just don't see this happening.
Yeah, I would say, like, oh, of course, you put in Jordan Love and see what he can do. No, but Jordan Love has been practicing, although that would be interesting.
Right.
Practicing with Aaron Rodgers. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
I don't know what they're going to do. None of this makes sense at the moment. I know everyone is desperate to get sports back, but again, you also want to slowly get back. You don't want to, oh my gosh, do this again. This whole no. I will say this. I mean, the other day when the bars opened up and everyone's at the bars, which, wow, that's to each their own. My first initial thought was, if anything, I want open, it's well business, but schools. Like, I feel bad that, the kids aren't getting, especially those seniors. The seniors in high school are missing out on their senior sports. They're missing out on their graduations. I feel so much for those kids right now. Maybe they don't know any better because they haven't graduated from high school yet, so they don't know that feeling, but they're going to miss out on that. And then you have all this other stuff going on in the state. Again, I don't want to get political. I don't want to approach that, but again, it's hard to, I guess, not put politics in sports either. You've heard Aaron Rodgers kind of make comments here and there, and I think he tries to be fairly politically even, when he's speaking a little bit.
Boy, did his comment about house arrest get blown out of proportion over the weekend. He just made it, it all feels like house arrest to everybody, but
I think that's what he was just saying. Like, it feels we are like on house arrest. I don't think he meant to get too political there. I actually thought his interview, I listened, I did think that was cool that, I don't know if you listened on Twitter or Facebook.
The whole thing.
I was off that day, but of course I listened in and I thought he was very well spoken. I thought he was very relaxed. I thought he gave some very good answers about Jordan Love. And, of course he was surprised by the pick and, and it's not realistic that he may not finish his career in Green Bay. I thought that was, all very interesting. Again, a new norm, because normally after the draft, we would see Aaron Rodgers in person, I would think, or they would usually fly him into Green Bay and we would have, or mini camps. Or OTAs, we would have something where we would talk to him in person. So to me, that was interesting on Friday that it was a 40-minute, conference call. And he answered all these type of questions.
I had it on, I think I had it on, I had it on
I was getting ready.
Speakerphone, and I was holding one of the babies as I'm listening to it. And the final answer, it was Rob Domofsky's question. The final answer, he circled back to the whole Jordan Love and your career thing. And the short answer is, I know I'm not finishing my career in Green Bay. And you know what? As much as I know the day after the draft freak out happened and so many people are comparing it to Favre and whatnot, it's okay if Aaron Rodgers doesn't finish a Packer. Like, that's the norm, I think, for all-time greats. The teams regroup, revamp. We just watched The Last Dance. I know that they could have probably gone after, title number 7. But it happens everywhere that teams say, all right, we're going to move on, and we wish you the best of luck. And if Rodgers goes on to the Bengals or the Browns or the wherever, I think you would wish him – I think Packers fans would wish him well. For the most part, they would have felt that way about Favre if he didn't go to Minnesota.
Right. I mean, keep in mind, he didn't go to Minnesota first. He went to the Jets first, and then made his way to Minnesota, which he did that. Come on, he did that to stick it to the Packers a little bit. And I will say this, I will admit this, that whole craziness, that whole summer, the whole Favre gate, when he finally went to Minnesota with the Vikings and he was in the NFC Championship and he was playing against the Saints, at that moment, I'm like, you know what? I'm rooting for Favre. I'm not a Vikings fan. I'm rooting for Favre. And then what does he do? Then he throws the pick, and you're like, oh my gosh.
Classic.
Classic Favre.
Classic.
Now, with that being said, I'm so happy for Drew Brees, and I thought that was the Super Bowl. I think he had the baby where he was holding the baby at the end. It was so beautiful and stuff, but that was crazy. I do think this is different, though. Aaron Rodgers, unlike Favre at this point in his career, was hemming and hawing about retirement. Aaron Rodgers hasn't really said anything about retirement. Again, now Favre didn't have any Tom Brady's to look up to. Not many are Tom Brady that can play in their 40s. But Aaron Rodgers has that to look to. I mean, he has that, he's as physically fit, I would think, as a Tom Brady. So it's not crazy to think that he'd want to. But as you were saying, in this day and age, it's it is realistic he won't finish his career in Green Bay.
And the league's a copycat league. I mean, it's tough to win an NFL championship when you have a quarterback making $30-40 million a year and sucking up that much of your payroll. I mean, look at the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes makes pennies compared to everybody else in the NFL. MVP, Super Bowl MVP. Now he's going to get paid in a year. It's going to be the biggest contract ever. But right now they're loading up everywhere else that they can. And I think that the Packers are looking at that saying, well, maybe in 2 years, if we can get Love up to speed, and he may not be as good as Mahomes, but we can do this on the cheap and save a little money.
Oh, I'm sure it's a business.
Yeah,
that's what they're doing. Even though they love their Brett Favres, they love their Aaron Rodgers. Overall, it's a business, and they're trying to keep it going. I don't know how they're going to keep it going without fans in the stands. A little bit.
That's the thing, too. Like you hear Michigan's Governor Whitmer says, nope, there's not going to be any fall gatherings in stadiums. So there goes any fall Tiger baseball games. There goes any Pistons games. There goes any Detroit Red Wings games. There goes any Michigan football, Detroit Lions football. LA's got their extended, there go not that anybody goes to Chargers games in Los Angeles anyway, but there go NBA games in LA and there go Dodger games in LA. It's tough because there's no uniform answer to any of this. You can't have a baseball or NFL season without Los Angeles. You can't have an NBA season without Los Angeles. You can't have an NFC North without Detroit.
Right.
And the problem is you and I are having this conversation. This conversation is happening everywhere, and no one knows the right answer because right now they don't have to make a decision on the NFL. They're working on a baseball decision, and we're all just kind of sitting around like, well, here's what I think is going to happen. And half the people are going to be right and half the people are going to be wrong.
I did find it interesting. We interviewed Tony Smith, the former Tulsa East, Marquette. Played in the NBA, played a season with the Bucks. He was asked those questions about, the poll, that the NBA players had the poll about wanting a season to come back. And he goes, well, what player, no matter what your record, who's going to say, oh, yeah, no, I don't want a season? Of course, you don't want to be that guy. No. Of course you're going to say, I want a season. But I understand if the league is divided or for the teams that are going to make the playoffs, of course you want to play. Mm-hmm. But if you have the worst record or a terrible, why would you want to play? No, let's start fresh. Although I will say this, we don't know when that start fresh is.
Right. So, like if Stephanie Sutton was the commissioner of the NBA, what's the right answer in your mind?
I still want to finish this season. I still think there's time to finish the current season. And that's not just because we cover a team that has potential to win the title, although that would be fun.
It's cool.
However, we may cover that. Not even sure if we'd be covering it, Maybe it's from a Zoom distance. I'm not sure. But I think you have to give it a few more months to figure that out. Because I don't even know what this means for the next season. I do like the idea of finishing this season out. This is just my personal opinion. And then, you have a little time off. Although they technically have sort of time off right now, but then you start the next season a little later, go into December or January to start the next season. Yeah,
and there are the ideas of starting it at Christmas, or I think they should start the season the day Rudy Gobert touched all the microphones.
Yeah.
That would be poetic, I think.
Kind of everything went downhill right then.
Exactly. It literally shut everything down, and Milwaukee got slammed by this. I mean, take the amount of cases of COVID-19 in Milwaukee County out, but the Bucks fans just had maybe their best team ever. ripped out of this. The same thing just happened to the Milwaukee Admirals. They had the best league record in the AHL. The Packers are coming off an NFC championship game, and maybe they get – this just sucks for Wisconsin sports fans.
It really does, right? Yeah, so if the pandemic would have happened in the 80s or early 90s –
who cares?
Who cares about this? Yeah, no.
I mean, the Mayday Bucks wouldn't have really cared all that much, and Brewers fans watching a whole bunch of nobodies lose 112 games, yeah, who cares? But this was actually the Brewers were a playoff team. The Bucks have the NBA championship in their sights. I mean, it just stinks.
Almost every one of our professional and college teams are doing pretty darn well. Yep, right about that.
Yeah, good
I
Lord.
feel for the again. You know, when they mentioned the NFL season, no, we can't cancel NFL games, this and that. It's too much money. I'm like, what do you think March Madness was? I mean, people were saying right before that, there's no way they would cancel March Madness. And then they canceled March Madness. So this is the unknown. It's scary. It's weird. Every morning I wake up and I'm like, this is so weird.
Yeah.
It's surreal.
I know my friends in sports radio all around the dial, because there's like 47 sports talk stations in Milwaukee right now, but they're all trying to reconfigure the words Jordan Love, Aaron Rodgers, Gutekunst, and LaFleur into new questions to ask everybody. From your perspective, are you guys still milking the draft? Are you still trying to drum up stories out of the NFL draft with Jordan Love? How do you guys come up with new content that isn't the same stuff that everybody else is doing?
Well, if you can help me with a lead story today, that would be fabulous.
I got it. I got my twins both pooped, which was a big day, big morning, back to back. And my sister-in-law brought me lunch because the oldest twin got up an hour and a half early this morning. So I've been up for a very long time.
You literally, I think I will say this about the pandemic and the kids not being in school. I used to work till 11 o'clock, got home 11:30, 12, midnight. My normal bedtime is 1 a.m. and I would get up at 6 a.m. because my son has to go to junior high. But because of no school, everyone sleeps. I sleep into 8 or 9 o'clock. My little, I got her trained to sleep till 9 a.m. It's beautiful, Mike. It's a beautiful thing. Now, but I'm not the only one. I have coworkers who also have younger children too. Their kids still get up at 6 a.m. I'm like, I got my babies trained where they, again, the older two are vampires. We don't see them, but the younger one, she sleeps till at least 9 o'clock every morning.
I see 1 a.m. somewhat often, pretty regularly. It's to feed the twins. We get up and we have to, because if one wakes up, then you have to feed both of them. I couldn't imagine if I didn't have to wake up at 1 in the morning. There's no way, after being with these children who I love, there's no way I could be up till 1 a.m. I have not seen 1 o'clock in the morning in a long, long time.
You have too many babies.
They're just everywhere. They're everywhere, Stephanie. They are everywhere. Well, good luck trying to find that new headline. Good luck trying to find the new content during this crazy, crazy time.
It's not easy.
And you guys are still churning out stories every single day. It's not like it's a one-time thing. Like I do this podcast once a week. I can find a guest who has some interesting perspective like yourself to come on once a week. You guys are like, all right, so that's wrapping up today's news stories. What's tomorrow? So I wish you guys nothing but the best.
Twice a day for sports, right? Again, I think our news director likes, any coronavirus update with the professional sports teams or any local sports angle. But, you can also say how many sports stories can we do now where these athletes are waiting to come back and trying to stay in shape? I mean, we've done those stories.
Yeah.
It's getting harder and harder. The cool thing with the Brewers, I think they've given donated a lot of money and food to the frontline workers. I know Omar Shaq has worked with Ryan Braun and Christian Yelich, and we've done those type of stories. Those are wonderful stories to do because honestly, that sort of is the bigger picture. I know we're sad. We're having sports withdrawal. I even talked to a sports psychologist. We definitely have sports withdrawal, but she says we are resilient. We're a resilient society, and we're going to bounce back.
We really are, and I love sports. You as well. I have learned, though, over the last couple of months, and I was quarantined before the quarantine, but I have learned that we can survive a little bit without pro sports if we can get this virus, not fixed because it's never going to be completely gone, but if we can get it sort of under control, sports will eventually come back. I appreciate the time so much. Thanks for coming on. Can we do this again soon down the road?
Oh, sure, that would be, yeah, this is a good time too, 1:30 in the afternoon. I liked it. Thank you.
I don't hear the babies crying right now. I got a half hour till the whole
Right.
cycle starts over again.
Holly's back in her room. I can hear her singing. I don't know if you can hear her singing. I don't know what she's doing with the dog, but they're back in the room there. So,
Well, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Continued success, and we'll talk again down the line.
all right, bye, Papa Wickett. What do they call you? Dada?
One of them calls me Dada. The other ones don't speak yet. They just coo and cry a lot. They don't call me anything yet, but
I don't miss that one bit. One bit.
you want me to play you a video of how it sounds? I mean,
Sure,
I could.
sure,
Let me pull that up real quick before we get out of here. It's great. It's wonderful. Let's see. This is the daughter. This was like real early in the morning. If I can find it, I'm not going to be able to find it by the time.
I swear I saw your wife make a comment on Facebook or Twitter. Are you going to make that bed behind you, or?
I don't know what you're talking about.
There's a reason I have like this all cleaned up behind me, because if you go in my bedroom right now, I'm sure my bed's unmade as well. But,
oh yeah. Well, I can't find it, the video, but I'll make sure I send it to you. How's that?
Okay.
I
wish you and your family health, happiness, and stay safe.
The same to you. Stay safe, Stephanie. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, bye, Mike.
Thanks for listening to Wickett on Wisconsin. If you have any feedback or you want to reach out to the show, you can find me on Facebook, Mike Wickett Podcasts, or you can email MikeWickettPodcasts@gmail.com. And you can find me on Instagram and Twitter @MikeWickett. Thanks to Silverman Sound Studios for providing the music for today's show. And you can find us anywhere you find your podcasts, including Apple, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. Until next week, thanks for listening to Wickett on Wisconsin.